Hey YouTube, I want to welcome you to this week's premiere. According to our schedule, we find ourselves at area of a circle. And remember, every month we do a series. We let you know what that series is ahead of time. So last week we did rectangles. This week we are doing circle. And we are continuing on the whole topic of area of a shape and how it is actually tested on the GED Math Test. We do it this way so that you are prepared, so that when you sit down for that test, at least from the point of view of this single video, and then you can also learn more about us, but from the point of view of this single video, you'll have a tool to help you get some points and be successful on the GED test. So let's go ahead and jump in. So here we are, and you know how everything works with us. We always start with the skill, which is basically just how do you do it. And so the skill of area of a circle, the very first thing we have to do is come to the formula. So the formula for area of a circle is pi times r squared. Now, what do those pieces mean for those of you who don't know? So the pi sign is a mathematical number that equals 3.14 is how it's commonly expressed. Pi is actually a number that goes well on into many decimal places. There's actually a pi day where people memorize all these decimals and quote them up to 100 and more numbers. But we won't get into all of that. Well, actually, I guess I just did. But anyway, so now you know what pi is. And then radius, and this is the most important thing in terms of the skill that you're going to learn, is radius is half the diameter. So the distance across the circle is called the diameter. And the radius is half the diameter, right? So let me get a color there for emphasis. So the radius is half the diameter. Radius equals half the diameter. Okay, so the diameter is the distance across a circle. Here you go. And then the radius is half the distance across the circle. So in this first example, when we have a radius of 10, we're just going to do 3.14 times, so the radius is 10, so we're going to put in 10 for radius, 10 squared, and so that's going to give us 100, and so obviously that's going to give us 314 square feet, because when we're measuring area, it's square feet or square inches or square millimeters or whatever, but it's always square, whatever measurement that you're using. Now, if we were given the question number 2 of diameter, and we take that same formula, pi r squared, but now in this case, because we know the radius is half the diameter, we plug in 10 for the radius because that's half of 20, right? So if this was 36, that would be 18. If this was 72, that would be 36. So whatever the diameter is, the radius is always half of that. So you have to be very careful when you're going through, especially on a timed test, when you're kind of moving fast, you're trying to move through, you got to make sure that you're, number one, did you receive the radius or did you receive the diameter, and make sure you use the proper number. All right, so now let's get to the meat of all things, which is the word problems, and which is the way that you're most likely to see this on the GED Math Test. So here we are with this word problem here, and the word problem says Nita wants to put 2 coats of lacquer on her wooden dining room table. The table is 12 feet wide, and each can of lacquer covers 35 square feet. How many cans of lacquer will she need to complete her project? So you know me, my 2-step method, every single time, which is to identify the question. And so the question is how many cans? And then we're going to step 2, state our path. What information have we been given? So we have this table. Let's just draw it. It's 12 feet wide, so we know we have a diameter of 12. And remember what I just showed you on the previous screen is that the radius is half the diameter. So coming back over here, if the width of the table is 12 or the diameter is 12, then what will the radius be? Well, of course, the radius is going to be 6, which is half of 12. And then, so we know what the formula for area of a circle is pi r squared, right? So we're going to go ahead and take pi, 3.14, and then we're going to put in radius, which is 6 squared, and that gives us 3.14 times 36, which gives us 113.04. Now, here's where reading carefully comes in. How many cans do we need? Well, there's one important detail here, which is right here. She wants to put 2 coats of lacquer. Let me highlight that. She wants to put 2 coats of lacquer on her table. And so because she wants to do 2 coats, we have to multiply that by 2, which gives us 226.8 square feet that she'll have to cover. Now, we also know, as we're stating our path, that each can, draw a little can here, sorry about that, not a great artist, is 35 square feet. So now what we're doing is taking the 226.08 and dividing that by 35, and that gives us 6.459 and so on. So here's another little decision we have to make. So it says, how many cans will she need, right? So if we were just to take 113.04 and divide that by 35, we would get 3 point something. So either you have 3 or 4 here, and you know, because they're not going to sell 3.4 of a can, so obviously you would need 4 cans. So these two answers are seeing A, can you do the math, and then B, can you estimate around in order to get to how many actual cans? So that would be 4. But in this case, what we're looking at is there's 2 coats. And so 2 coats requires 6.4 cans or 7 cans. And so the idea is picking up on the fact that there are 2 coats of lacquer that are needed. And so the 113 gets double. And then we take that new amount of square footage that we'll have to cover on this wooden dining room table. We divide that by 35 square feet because that's the amount of lacquer covered in each can. And then we get 6.459. And then so now we round that up to 7 because they're not going to sell you 6.49 cans. They're just going to sell you 7 cans. So again, on the GED test, this is what you have to be aware of. It's these little details that prevent you. So I hope this video has been helpful to you. I hope that you've enjoyed this week's video. Be sure to come back next Thursday. We'll be tackling another area measurement subject. If you like this video, please like it. You see the subscribe button there. Make sure that you subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. And make sure to share this with other people who you think it will be helpful to see. See you next week.